Summer is supposed to be a season of joy, of families flocking to lakes, rivers, and beaches, of kids cannonballing into the water while parents soak up the sun. But beneath the sparkling surface, invisible killers lurk, waiting for the moment when an unsuspecting swimmer gives them the perfect chance to strike. They are not the kind of monsters you see in movies with claws and teeth. These threats are microscopic, faceless, and merciless, and once they enter the body, they move with a speed and brutality that even modern medicine struggles to keep up with. Two in particular have made headlines this summer, terrifying both health officials and beachgoers alike: Naegleria fowleri, the so-called brain-eating amoeba, and Vibrio vulnificus, the deadly flesh-eating bacteria. Both organisms are incredibly rare, but what makes them so chilling is not their frequency, it's their devastating consequences. When they strike, they leave almost no room for error. In Missouri, a man was hospitalized after contracting Naegleria fowleri, an organism that thrives in warm fresh water. Known to scientists as a free-living amoeba, it is far more infamous to the public as the brain eater. This name isn't hyperbole. Once inhaled through the nose, the amoeba travels along the olfactory nerve straight into the brain, bypassing the body's usual immune defenses. What follows is a disease called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, or PAM, which is one of the most lethal infections known to science. Early symptoms can feel like a common illness: headache, fever, nausea, but within days the situation spirals out of control. Confusion sets in, neck stiffness makes even small movements unbearable, seizures strike without warning, and hallucinations distort reality. For families, the horror lies not just in watching a loved one deteriorate, but in how rapidly the illness progresses. In some cases, death has occurred within a single day of symptoms appearing. Since 1962, only 167 cases have been reported in the United States. That number sounds small, but the survival rate is even smaller. Only 4 people have lived through it. For doctors, the disease is so rare that most will never see it in their careers, and when it does appear, it often takes precious time to even consider it as a diagnosis. The treatment window is tragically short. Amphotericin B, an aggressive antifungal, alongside a combination of other antimicrobials and newer drugs like miltefosine, has been used in attempts to save patients, but survival is the exception, not the rule. The amoeba destroys brain tissue so quickly that medicine can rarely keep pace. What makes this amoeba so frightening is how ordinary the exposure can be. People do not get sick from drinking contaminated water. The danger lies in water entering the nose during diving, skiing, or simply dunking one's head under. In warm, freshwater lakes, rivers, and hot springs, the amoeba can thrive during summer, particularly when water levels are low and temperatures soar. Stirring up sediment at the bottom of lakes increases the risk, as the amoeba tends to linger there. For the average person, that means a fun afternoon activity like jumping into the lake or rinsing sinuses with untreated tap water can turn into a fatal mistake. And yet avoiding infection isn't difficult if precautions are taken. Nose clips, keeping your head above water, and using only boiled or distilled water for nasal rinsing are simple steps that make all the difference. The real tragedy is that most people never hear of Naegleria until it is too late. While Naegleria attacks the brain, another microscopic killer is assaulting the body in a different way. Along the Gulf Coast, Vibrio vulnificus is once again making headlines. This bacterium is notorious for being one of the most aggressive flesh-destroying organisms known to man. When it enters the body through an open wound exposed to brackish seawater, it can unleash necrotizing fasciitis, a condition where the skin, muscles, and tissues begin to die rapidly. Infections progress so fast that within hours of exposure, a small cut can turn into a swollen, blistering wound leaking fluid and tissue. If the bacteria reach the bloodstream, septicemia sets in, overwhelming the body's organs and often leading to death in a matter of days, sometimes even hours. This summer alone has seen dozens of cases reported across the Gulf states. By mid-August, Louisiana had 17 confirmed infections with 4 deaths, Florida had 13 with another 4 fatalities, and even states like Mississippi and Alabama were not spared. But perhaps the most unsettling development came when Massachusetts confirmed its first case of the year. The victim, who had been swimming at Old Silver Beach with an open wound, contracted Vibrio vulnificus in waters that until recently were considered too cold for the bacteria to thrive. Health officials immediately issued warnings, urging anyone with cuts or chronic health conditions to avoid exposure. The fact that Vibrio has now reached New England is more than just an isolated tragedy, it is a warning sign. Warmer oceans are expanding the habitat of these pathogens, and places once thought safe may no longer be immune. The health risks of Vibrio infections are staggering. For people with weakened immune systems, chronic illnesses, or liver disease, the fatality rate ranges from 20 to 50%. That means 1 in every 2 patients may not survive. Even among those who do, the road to recovery is brutal. Some require amputations to stop the infection's spread, others spend weeks in intensive care, battling sepsis and organ failure. These aren't just statistics, they are stories of vacations gone horribly wrong, of families blindsided by sudden tragedy, of people losing limbs or lives after something as ordinary as wading in the surf or eating a raw oyster. Unlike Naegleria, which targets only a few each year, Vibrio infects dozens to hundreds annually in the United States, and thousands worldwide. And unlike the amoeba, which strikes randomly and without warning, Vibrio infections often start with clear risk factors, an open wound in seawater or a meal of raw shellfish. That makes prevention possible, but only if people are aware. Too many folks dismiss a small cut as harmless or just assume oysters at a raw bar are totally safe. The truth is that cooking kills Vibrio, but eating raw or undercooked shellfish is really gambling with something far more serious than just an upset stomach. What both of these deadly organisms have in common is climate. Rising global temperatures are heating waters to levels that give these pathogens more opportunities to thrive. Lakes in the Midwest and South are staying warmer longer, creating breeding grounds for Naegleria. Oceans along the East Coast are warming too, allowing Vibrio to spread further north each year. July through September has now become peak danger season, not because the organisms didn't exist before, but because conditions are aligning in their favor more frequently. Climate change is redrawing the infection map, and honestly the cases in Missouri and Massachusetts this summer are proof that no region should consider itself immune. For health officials, this presents a growing challenge. Both diseases are rare enough that most physicians will never see them, yet deadly enough that missing an early diagnosis almost guarantees disaster. That means public awareness is the first line of defense. Recognizing that a headache and fever after a lake trip might be more than the flu, or that redness around a small scrape after swimming in the ocean could be more than a rash, can save lives. These aren't common outcomes, but they are catastrophic ones, and time is everything. It's tempting to dismiss these warnings as fear-mongering. After all, millions of people swim safely every summer. But rare doesn't mean impossible, and climate shifts are making the improbable a little more likely each year. The key is not to stop swimming, not to avoid the ocean forever, but to swim smarter, eat seafood carefully, and treat the water with the respect it deserves. A nose clip, a waterproof bandage, a well-cooked oyster, these small choices carry the weight of enormous consequences. The most chilling aspect of both Naegleria and Vibrio isn't just their rarity or their lethality, it's their speed. They do not wait, they do not linger. They strike hard and fast, often before the victim even knows they're in danger. That is why awareness is power. It gives people the chance to recognize the threat and act before the window closes. Because by the time confusion, seizures, necrotizing fasciitis, or sepsis set in, the battle is already uphill. The water has always been a place of beauty, escape, and recreation. But it is also a living ecosystem filled with organisms that have been here long before us and will remain long after. Most are harmless, some are even essential, but a few, like Naegleria fowleri and Vibrio vulnificus, remind us that nature is not just playground but predator too. Respecting it doesn't mean living in fear. It means acknowledging its power, protecting yourself and your loved ones, and recognizing that microscopic threats can be as dangerous as any storm or predator we've ever faced. So as you plan your next trip to the beach or the lake, Remember this. The dangers in the water are evolving, spreading, and fueled by changes in our climate. What you don't know about the water can hurt you, but what you do know, what you've learned today, can protect you. Stay informed, take precautions seriously, and make your summer memories the ones that live on in photo albums and family stories, not in hospital records. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe now for more fact-based health updates that can keep you and your family safe. Because knowledge isn't just power, it's survival.